Oh, Jessica, they are growing so quickly at this point, starting to wander off away from the nest. So it is a little bit precarious now, because as much as they're enjoying the safety of the nest at the moment, in the hotter times of the day, there's not much shade there because the sun is directly into the nest, and so they start wandering off along the banks. And that could be problematic because that means they might be detected by predators, but hopefully they will be safe. Hopefully. Mom is usually around watching with her beady eyes. Mom or dad, not sure which. But hopefully this is the brood. Hopefully these little wiglets are around for a time still, and then leave and have their own lives. Amazing. The one is definitely grumpier looking than the other though. The one on the right has barely opened its eyes. It's just been completely uninterested in us, disinterested. The one on the left is half interested. And even then occasionally blinking for a few seconds longer than you'd think. So one is kind of grumpy and tired, and the other one is, the best description I have is meh. Half here, half there. Yeah. Kind of watching, but also kind of resting. Oh, listen to those woodland kingfishers. That even got the little wig's attention. Walter, no. Unfortunately, these little ones are not flying yet, and that's probably a good thing, because if they do start flying and they get down into the riverbed, they might find it a bit tricky to get back up to that nest. So no, they're definitely not flying yet. It's normally around a month and a bit after they've hatched and started moving around the nest that they start trying to fly. But they probably only get it right quite a bit later than that. They only leave this area at about 4 months old. So by then they've got it all down. They know how to hunt and fly on their own, but it takes quite a while. But even then, after kind of starting to move away from the nest for another at least 6 to 8 weeks, they still stay very close to the nest with the adults. So that's the time when they really practice their flying and hunting skills. Oh, they are just so beautiful. I can't believe how much detail is coming out on those feathers. And you can see there's a nice light breeze. It's blowing all of their downy feathers around. Must be nice and cool there. I've been wondering, what's that thing on the floor? So in between them, there's a white fluffy bit sticking out on the floor. Is one of them extending a leg in a really strange position? Because I can imagine the leg might still be a bit of a creamy white color. Or could that potentially be some form of food? Like the white fluffy underside of a scrub hare, or I don't know. Oh, there we go. It might be a leg. It moved. Maybe it's got its legs outstretched to try and get some breeze over them, get nice and cool. That's quite cute. It also helps with balance, I suppose, because when you start falling asleep sitting upright, things can go a bit pear-shaped. Oh, look at the grumpy face. See, the one on the right's definitely the grumpy one. That is the proper eagle owl eye right there. It's even moving its head at us now. Excuse me, what are you doing? Why are you here? So we're a decent distance from the nest. It's not as though they're feeling intimidated by us. I think they have gotten used to vehicles already. Oh, little stretch and cuddle. You probably just find it's naturally got one of those resting grumpy faces, that particular one. I know a few people with that face. Actually, that's very lovely voice in my ear. We know a few people as well. I'm sure everyone knows a few people that have that face only when specific events are happening or when specific people are around. I think I get that face if I'm running late and hungry at the same time. I'm a very timiest person. I like to be on time, before time. My on time is 15 minutes early for anything. So if you combine me running late and me being hungry, and maybe let's add a lack of caffeine, because Igor was here, and the last time Igor was here, I accidentally made decaf coffee instead of normal coffee, and that was a whole day. That was an entertaining day. But let's add those three together, and I'm fairly sure I look even a little bit grumpier than the owl on the right. What gives you a grumpy face, Rian? Nothing. You're constantly smiling. Okay, so Rian is definitely not one of the Wiglets. No spirit animal for him here. And then if I'm super tired in the mornings, I look like the owl on the left when it was half giving us the eye. You know, one eye open, but kind of the other half of the face is a bit grumpy, and you're not really sure what's happening. We can make a whole new thing about the varying faces of these owls and what mood they correlate to for each person, because they're just so expressive. That one on the right is honestly just living its best grumpy life. I love it. Oh, they're both starting to doze off now. Oh, and it's just cooled down. You could actively feel it dropping in temperature now. Wow, those are some pretty big claws, and it moves, and it's just rested its head on the other one's back. That is adorable. So we've got one cuddly owlet or wiglet, and one that's just there for the support, even though it feels grumpy about it. In all seriousness, they do actually need this bonding time. We did see the adult earlier, but it's positioned itself in a tree that's very tough to get a view. But it is still here somewhere, I know that much, so always the ever watchful parenting eye around, especially now that they're getting so active. Oh, big yawn, that was adorable. Okay, we're going to leave them to their napping. We don't want to stay here for too long and disturb such a beautiful slumber.
Big household. I saw Mom just now, she's sitting above them, and then Dad, I think, is also around too. He's behind us at the moment, and they're also sleeping. So Mom normally sits much closer to the nest. Nathan, who's 8 years old? No, not yet. Nathan, they're still too little, and if you look, they don't have the proper development of their wings yet. So the feathers haven't grown, the proper feathers. So while they do have these little white fluffy feathers, those ones are not actually good enough for them to fly. Those are feathers that are more designed for them to stay warm and insulated when they are little chicks, and so those then give away to the nice big thick proper flight feathers as they get a little bit older. Now in terms of how old they are and what they get up to and what goes on in the owl world, these guys now will probably be about 5 weeks old, if I'm not mistaken, close to that. So they will just be starting to develop proper feathers. Once they get to this stage, they start to walk around, but they'll only start to actually fly when they reach about 8 weeks. So about 2 weeks time, we should start to see them being able to fly a little bit, and that they will be moving around from tree to tree. So we're not quite at the age where flying is possible. Those feathers need to develop a little bit more, and interestingly, it's their tail feathers that hold them back. The wing feathers tend to develop first, and so at about 6 weeks the wing feathers are looking okay, but the tail is only about half the length that it should be, and so tail is important for flight. It helps to stabilize, and so they need that tail to grow out to about 8 weeks, and then they can start moving about. Now you'll see the one chick is starting to get warm already. It's got its wings opened out, and it's now practicing Gular flutter. So essentially the same as panting or us sweating. It's essentially the same way that it works. So as they breathe hot air over their mouth, there is moisture inside there that is being evaporated, and evaporated air or moisture causes cooling, and that cools the blood down and sends the cooler blood back into the body, and the overall body temperature can decrease. So that is why that bird is doing it. It's not sick, it's not injured or anything else. And the wings opening out like that is just to get a bit of air underneath. As these down feathers are still on the bird, it gets very, very, very warm. And so hopefully soon all those down start to drop out, and the bird will feel a lot more comfortable. If I go forward just now when we're done, in fact, maybe let's go forward a little bit now quickly, and I can show you where the adult is, and you'll see the difference in how the adult looks from a feather perspective. So I don't know if you can see it, Igor, just through there in the tambuti tree. You'll see the mom sitting there, and you'll see the difference in how she's sitting. She's not Gular fluttering, and her feathers are much more sleek in appearance. So that's what the birds will eventually start to look like. Like I say, it takes a while for them to start resembling a fully grown adult. And it's normally at around 8 weeks that you can start to see them kind of still a bit fluffy, and then they will develop into probably about 3 months. They are properly feathered like the adults. Leanne, male from female is exceptionally difficult, but what they tend to say is that, and this is what I've read about spotted eagle owls on nests, is that the female always remains close. So she sits right above the nest, or as close to the nest as possible, and the male a little bit further, and he tends to fly around and get the food and do all the things. When she's obviously nest bound and incubating, then he does everything. So she typically likes to sit right above the nest, and so if you look here, she's here, and then the other owl is behind us. I don't think we'll be able to get it from here. He's sitting in another tree. Igor's going to try. I'm sorry about the antenna, everybody, but he's over there somewhere in that tree. Have you got him? Yeah, so he's sitting there, a little bit further away, and normally the female right above where the male is. Michael Fleetwood, this is incredible, isn't it, that we've been able to document these birds for as long as we have. It's been a very, very cool thing, and it's especially because the nest is so accessible for us, and without any sort of invasive off-roading or anything like that. I mean, we're just driving in sand, basically, so it's low impact. We're not creating a huge, road to it. We're not clattering into trees to get to where they are. And they are incredibly tolerant. I mean, these owls didn't have to nest here. The first few times we started to see them, we didn't have to, they could have moved on and found a different nest. But we're very, 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 very fortunate that we've had these guys here for as long as we have. And sometimes these owls can nest in the exact same place for years and years and years and years and years, and be a kind of permanent feature for as long as they're alive, which is pretty crazy. And that can be 11, 12 years of adult life. So we'll still probably have them for a while longer. All right, well, we'll probably move on. I might stay for a little bit just because I like watching them do their Gular flutter. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Tess.